Awesome, and welcome back to another recording of How to Make It in Toronto. One of our favorite guests of all time is here, Mr. Howard Freedman. We've had so many phenomenal conversations, and we're so thankful to have you back on again. For all those who are not aware, Howard is a financial aid expert, financial planning expert, and certainly when it's coming to understanding finances related to college, he's helping us better understand how to plan, what students are looking at, what students are thinking about, how families should be strategizing around preparing their child or themselves for college. He's got a phenomenal book that I think everyone should read. And I'm just really excited to get the chance to sit down with him. I'm surprised he continues to sit down with me, to be honest, because I just annoy him and fill up his insight. But I'm thankful to have Howard back. How are you, Howard? Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. It's a great pleasure to work with you, and I look forward to sharing hopefully some valuable information for our listeners.
Exactly. I mean, this is going to be one of those. I'd like to keep it formal in terms of what people are going to learn, certainly to start. But I do want to end it on a light note with a few horror stories that people can tune in for. But
Okay.
Let's start off because we know we may only have their attention for a little bit and stick around for the end. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, I mean, we did talk about AI and its effect in education, in how students are using it, how it's affecting college students. But aside from AI, what are some new trends that you're seeing in the world of college planning and financial aid this year?
I think the several things that are happening, certainly the economy is one of the biggest. I think people are afraid that there's just uncertainty in terms of, sources of income, costs, the cost of, cost of goods and services. And I think, unless you have the money, it could be a detriment in terms of going to college that could be quite expensive. I think also the other thing when we were talking about AI is the world is changing. It's changing. AI is changing. The whole nature of education in college, it's changing. It's going to be different 10 years from now. So it's almost a guessing game in terms of what should you major in? Is it going to be worth it, or is it going to go away? Is it really going to go away? And now you're left with, well, what should I do? So I think people are starting to question their options. Is college such a good deal? Is it worth it? Should I incur a lot of debt for my children when I'm close to retirement age? What should my children do? What do they want to do? Can I justify? So there's a lot of these questions that go beyond selecting a major. It's like, what is happening in this world? What are all these things that are creating more uncertainty? Now, when that happens, and we'll talk about this, there are other choices than expensive four-year colleges that kind of bridge the gap. And then it's time to do some other due diligence and see where the trends are going. Look at the statistics, look at read the paper, watch the news. That's where the world is going. And we're in a period of uncertainty. And when you're in that period and you're still uncertain as to what to do, you get double uncertainty. So I think a lot of people are just very uptight and not sure if they're willing to make the commitment.
Yeah. I totally feel that way. It's something that I'm also, if just, I guess, selfishly speaking for myself, and considering, doing more, post grad school and upskilling. It's something that I think anyone should consistently be thinking of, right? Because with technology, with everything, being able to continuously learn and being able to build more skills is what's going to help you be continuously successful. And so, of course, for me, I'm taking a look at, what schools would I want to do this at, or, as you're saying, what are some of the best courses, or is there a point to me doing this? Is it better for me to better understand how to utilize AI? And that's going to be how I'm going to learn. So I totally agree with that. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of uncertainty, certainly, around college. Is that something you're seeing as well?
I'm seeing it too, and there was an expression which I can't say it exactly, but Mark Twain was talking about, beyond education, you always need to continue learning. Learning and education are not the same. Education is a formalized, opportunity to learn things, to learn certain types of subject, but learning is much different. I think with what we're talking about is people need to be more flexible. That's it. And I think what's happening over time is that employers and agencies are looking for people who have core competencies. And what I mean is that they have good speaking skills. They understand math. They understand science. They can adapt to changing and different cultures. And to get beyond the rigidity of saying, well, I learned this in school. When I was a student, I worked for Ford Motor Company. I remember it was a great job back then. But the plant manager got up and he did use a lot of profanities, which I will not use here. But just, think of the profanities, okay? And it's those profanities. And he got up in front of the meeting with people graduating. He says, "You're at Ford Motor Company now." And this happened a long time ago. And we do things a certain way. And that's what we want you to learn. Take your diplomas and throw them in the wastebasket because they're not going to mean anything until you do things our way. And I think that's what happens. You have to kind of give up, what you learned, old habits and everything, and learn to do things to adapt to the new world, and then determine how much you're willing to pay for it in terms of your college costs. I've talked a lot about, not to pay retail costs. And an interesting statistic, and I know I'm jumping, that 85 to 80% of first year students get some type of aid. Okay. So I want to just say, and let's not talk about college for a minute, but let's say you want to buy a new vehicle. What's the first thing people do? They want to get a lower price. How much you going to give me for my car? The dealer across the street can give me a better price and better service. Can you meet that price? Can you meet that price? Do you want my business? If you want my business, you'll work with me. Let me work with you. And I think using the vehicle example, it's the same thing for college, that just because they throw an offer on the table, it doesn't mean that you have to accept it. The other piece to it, and this is a piece that gets lost a lot of times, is families need to talk about the net price of how much they can afford. So when they go to college, getting a financial aid award, shouldn't be a surprise. It should be the net amount that is determined in relation to what you think you can pay. And if you think that you can make it, fine. But I think you should also appeal it, which means go up to the financial aid office and make your case to saying, we just simply can't afford this school. We love it, but we can't afford it. And what is the worst? You got to ask yourself, what's the worst going to happen?
Mm.
They'll say no.
Yeah.
What's the best that's going to happen is they'll say, yeah, let's take a look and see what we can do. Now, so again, you look at, then you say, okay, my child wants to go to, I'll pick McGill because it just comes to mind. People from wants to go to McGill, and it's X $1,000 to go there, but they're not quite sure what they want to do.
Mm.
Just not sure. They don't know. So why should you buy anything or make a decision if you don't know what you're buying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you look at um, the picture is one, you look at what the college has to offer, you look at what many colleges have to offer. Then you start trimming. You have to say, well, what can we cut out?
Mm.
What can we cut out? Do we need to take a trip around the world? That's going to cost us 50,000. Maybe we can go to Toronto, the city, and go out for dinner. I mean, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but you need to kind of look at where is all the money going, and
Mm.
then you have to make a really good case to not pay retail price by having a budget and saying this is where our money is going to. It's going to pay for medical costs. Our roof blew off of our house. Our car broke down. My all my children are deranged, and they need they need psychological. I'm just kidding, listeners, but they need psychological help, and that's quite expensive because the psychologist doesn't take insurance.
Mm.
What was me? Well, none of that information, for the most part, are on the forms. So you have to kind of bring to attention and quantify what those costs are in relation to how much disposable income you have, and how good is your credit, and and schools go after what they call enrollment management.
Mm.
What that is how badly do they want the student? Is
Yeah.
this a student they really want to go after because this student is so good? They were on the football team, the hockey team, they're president of the class. They have a perfect average. Um, this is the type of student, and to do that, it may cost money to lure that student. So you're increasing to reduce costs. You want to increase value.
Yeah.
You want to increase your value to say, we want to go after Carl because he's quite a guy and he can bring a lot to the school, and create value for yourself. Um, I think families tend to use their emotional power to overlook the obvious.
Mm.
Uh, I think many families are happy that their child has gotten accepted to a school. They got a good scholarship, but
Mm.
they fail to realize what the net cost is. And then they're worried that emotionally they may hurt the student's feelings, may feel all kinds of guilt, um, willing to work 3 jobs, wash floors, go to work at Walmart, sweep the streets at night, not doing it, all those things
Mm.
just to make the child happy. But what they're doing is they're also taking away from their retirement, their cost of living. And maybe they just have to be straight to say, hey, this is what we can do. This
Mm.
is how much we can spend. And I have to ask you as a decision maker, what kind of debt are you willing to incur? You
Mm.
know, take a look, put a journal together of what you think all your strengths are and why you deserve to go to this school. And what are you going to tell the decision maker in terms of our family's abilities to pay? So it does take work. It does take work, but you have to be realistic and practical. And your job as parents are not necessarily to please your student, although you want to do whatever is best for them,
Mm,
but to work out a financial alternative, you know, look for scholarships if they're around.
mm,
Look to going part-time. Look at going to community college and transferring.
mm,
Look at ways of um, maybe changing a major, maybe looking at a state or provincial university, you know,
mm,
because they all can lead to the same thing. Maybe find an employer who's willing to pay for your education, you
mm,
know. So there's a lot of maybes, a lot of things that you can do if in fact you get denied additional aid. And there's really no way that you can afford it. You know, take a step back and say, look, this is not personal at all, but we just can't do it. Let's let's think of ways of how we can do it. You know, although it may take time to do it, but it's it'll be worth it. Let's all work together. I think
yeah.
that's really the key.
Yeah, yeah, and I totally agree with that. I know sometimes emotion does go into that decision, which can sometimes blind or kind of miss the point in what you're there to do or what you're looking to do and how you can actually save money down the line. I know you had started and you said something. You had mentioned the economy and and in how that obviously impacts your decision and how you're going to go forward. Could you share some tips in how best, like if I'm a student or I'm a family, I could position myself to become a more attractive candidate, for example, either for scholarships or financial aid, which would probably help in terms of being able to attend that school or be able to afford to pay it.
Well, I think the first thing is start early. Um, if
Mm,
you say I'm going to start to be what I am, and
mm,
you're junior or senior, it is kind of late. So I think number one is look at the start of high school and try to take a track in which you have the opportunity to be a leader, a good student, etc. Have a methodical way of saving money, whatever that might be, to put it away for college. Network with other people, especially graduates that preceded you in your high school. Um, Look at really, I think in the U.S. Um, and I don't want to get into politics. That's kind of dangerous.
mm,
I will say what's happening, and I think your listeners should be aware, is the following. This is just an overview.
mm,
In the past, parents could borrow up to the full amount of their unmet need.
mm,
If their unmet need was 50,000, they could borrow that through what they call a Parent Plus loan in the U.S.
mm,
They changed that next year could only borrow 20,000. Okay.
mm. Yeah.
The amount of money that can be borrowed for graduate school has gone down. Um, the repayment methods on the loans have become much more stringent.
Mm,
So what's really happening? I think it appears that the government is getting out of the loan business because they got hurt. People were taking loans and they weren't paying them back.
mm,
Now they're sort of kind of being punished and saying, okay, you got to pay this up. We're going to give you two repayment options.
mm,
Some of it could be based on your pay. So bear that in mind that if you go into one plan, it's going to come out of your pay when you start working.
mm,
The other thing is that it's going to force families to go more into the open market and get alternative loans, which can be just as expensive, but they don't give you some of the benefits of the federal loans, like forgiveness, payment upon death. They're
mm,
much more black and white, and they're much much less flexible.
Mm.
So you have to kind of look at it to say, mom and dad can only earn 20,000 a year. So let's look at it real simple. All right,
Mm.
let's say the college is, we'll pick 70,000. Okay, the parents can borrow um, 20,000. That brings it down to 50.
Mm.
In the U.S., there is a company which I'll share. It's called Pickett and Hatcher. The only reason I share it is it's a company that allows borrowers with good credit to borrow up to $12,000 a year at 2% interest.
Mm.
That's a good one
Mm.
to tell families.
Mm.
The other things are there are schools that have, um, payment plans where you can pay so much a month with no interest. So
Mm.
all this stuff we're looking at will reduce costs,
Mm.
make it easier to pay without incurring a lot of debt. So you want to look at these things, but bear in mind, some of these things the parent takes on the onus of being responsible for repaying the loan.
Mm.
Now, if you give me, if time permits, I will give you a horror story, if you'd like me to.
Please, yeah, I would love to.
So, a horror story that always comes to mind is this parent divorced his wife, and the son wanted to go to school to be a musician. So he asked his dad if he could help him out. And the dad emotionally said, "Sure, son, I'll be happy to help you. I'll liquidate my retirement. I'll take loans. I'll do anything so
Oh.
you can realize your dream and
Mm.
go to music school." So he did that. The child was happy. He fulfilled his dreams, made an emotional decision. But what happened at the end of the year, the student contacted the dad and told him he flunked out.
Oh no.
So what happened? What is the lesson here? Okay, number one, there was no communication between the student and the parent as to how well he was doing. Okay.
Mm.
Number two, the parent had, wiped out his retirement and incurred debt, which was now payable, rather than after graduation.
Mm.
Uh, Three, I think the lesson learned is you need to talk about choices. Just because a student asks for something, it doesn't mean that you have to say yes.
Mm.
What happened was it was lose-lose for everybody. The student, I don't know what he ended up doing, but if he did want to go to music school, he'd probably have to go out and, work.
Mhm.
The dad was really in a bind because he was divorced and he didn't have any money.
Mm.
The lack of communication, and I can't overemphasize this. When a child goes to school and a parent pays, there is an implied obligation to communicate to the parent how they're doing. And if there's any red flags, you got to jump in. You can't wait to the end of the year and say, "Hey, Dad, I'm flunking." Make
Yeah.
sure if there should be a pact and understanding. Say, I'm gonna help you. I want
Mm.
to help you, but you're accountable to me. And no going to parties every weekend. No having fun. You're going to school to be a musician because that's what your true purpose and passion is.
Mm.
But don't surprise me. I don't want to be surprised. And by you flunking out, you're proving to me that you didn't put any effort into your course. So I think it all kind of comes together in terms of coming to some type of agreement. I think it comes together when being practical, looking as a family decision. I think it comes together when the student does their diligence in terms of, looking at statistics, looking at the acceptance rate, looking at the rejection rate, looking at the flunk out rate, looking at the amount of financial aid is given. What are the job opportunities upon graduation?
Yeah.
How much you're going to get paid? And I think you have to kind of look at that all together, because once they do get out of college, they're going to have to start repaying their loan. So I think this whole thing, but when a parent or a student gets in the mail said, I got accepted to X and I got 30,000,
Mhm.
that's when the work begins. It doesn't end. And
Mhm.
I think that's when you have to crunch the numbers, you have to do comparative analysis, you have to look at the cost of capital, you have to look at uh, basically if there's any gas left in the tank in terms of appealing an award. And,
Mhm.
and and also considering if there's other children involved,
Yeah.
and if in turn the child also wants to go to grad school, that's also part of the picture. So it takes a lot of work. I mean, I do a lot of work when I meet with parents just to make sure they know what their options are and who's responsible for the decisions.
Yeah. Totally. And I think you brought up such an important point, especially in regard to communication, and ensuring you're both in line. But I think also holding each other accountable. Certainly, when you're making such a big investment, it's something that impacts both people, or both, I guess, both parties in that situation, right? And something that I've seen, and I can at least use myself for example, is going into college or going to university right after high school. I don't think I had that mature enough mindset to think that way. Do you know what I mean? Of that, to me, it was more of like a it was getting out of the house and basically learning to take care of myself the first time. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? So, I think it took me a while to adapt, and more so see it as, okay, this is what I'm here to do and execute. So you kind of spent your first year just trying to figure yourself out,
right.
trying to learn that stuff, and then it took, again, is like not doing so well as I expected in my first year, and kind of having that wake up shock, and kind of at that point kind of realizing, okay, I'm here to accomplish this. This is how I should be perceiving it. This is how it's going. Because it took some, just, I feel like, not intellectual maturity, but like, I guess, societal maturity of understanding how everything works. So I know that some people, and certainly if you're going right to school at 18, you may not be thinking of life or even school from that perspective, and having that conversation, as you've mentioned, and that communication with parents, and having a success plan and how you plan on actually achieving it, not just kind of saying, hey, you need to go to college because that's what I want you to do. And you get there, it's like, well, we're paying for it, we're expecting it, and then parents get that call of like, hey, you know what, I flunked out, I'm so sorry. uh,
Yeah.
which is a tough thing. So I think you're right in terms of stressing the importance, and having that communication with your child in terms of, this is what I want to accomplish. This is the reason we want to send you here. Here's how we can hold each other accountable. But at the same time, have that understanding of, it's still a kid, and a kid's not going to be thinking, down the line like a parent is, or have that, life holistic look at, the reasons you're going to college and what to expect. So communication is a huge key to success. Certainly when you're making this type of decision.
I think you're spending 12, 13, 14 years in high school where there's a regiment,
Yeah.
there's an outline that you go each year, you move up a grade, um, you study, math, science, languages, and the situation is at 17, 18, whatever, you're moving on to more of it. You're going to get 4 years of more of the regimentation.
Mm.
And I think what I said earlier about learning, this gap that occurs after high school is a
Mm.
learning gap. It's a learning gap. That's where you learn. You learn. And I think unfortunately, what happens is when you have 16, 17, 18 years of formal education, um, it's what you get out of it. There's no question about it.
Mm,
But the learning doesn't really start like the story that I told you about Ford.
mm,
Doesn't start until you're let loose. It's like there's a show on the news about these baby eaglets, and you see the mom and dad eagles, and they're the little baby eagles, and they give them worms and stuff. And miraculously, they grow, and it'll get to some point that the birds will be strong enough and they'll fly away.
mm,
But they'll do, never probably to be seen again by the parents.
mm,
And that's the thing I think parents uh, need to do to make sure their children are strong enough
mm,
to fly away on their own and pick a direction that they think, will make them happy and make them a value asset to society.
yeah.
So it's not the little birds aren't going to stay in the nest forever. They
Mm,
fly once they're able and strong enough, and they may start flying and fall down.
mm,
Get up and they do it again. And it's the same thing with education. At some point, I know kind of what's interesting about a mom and dad's perspective. I think most moms are very nurturing and caring, and they want to make sure they eat well, and they send them care packages, with candies and goodies and notes. I love you, honey, and I miss you. I miss you so much, sweetheart. I don't know. Every day I wake up and tears roll down my face. I'm just so miss you so much. I hope you can come. And then the father says, Mary, stop it. Stop it. He needs to be strong. Don't send him these packages.
exactly.
I want him to come back as a man or a woman
Mm,
and stop crying. We're going to think of ourselves. So I think it's part of nature,
mm,
for maybe moms to be more nurturing and dads
mm,
making their child stronger. But it's a little bit about both. I think you need to learn to fly. You
mm,
need to be prepared because at some point, this formal education is going to end. And at
mm,
some point, the child is going to pick up some responsibility. And at some point, the child has to prove themselves to some stranger
mm,
that that they're able. Now, on the other hand, it provides an opportunity for greatness. That there are people that go to school, many of them that have been inventive, have brought some really wonderful things to the world,
mm,
have solved a lot of problems, have been role models. So there's probably just as many of those, maybe more, that took this thing really seriously.
mm,
Worth it to invest in college. I'm kind of being a little bit facetious about the student that may not take it as seriously,
mm,
but a very, very serious investment. It's up to the student again to be successful, um, and to kind of take some of the financial burden off the parents because they're going to be older. They're going to be 4 years older, after the student graduates, and they have to start thinking of themselves in the future. That's how it works.
100%. I think that's totally true. And I love that point. I think and it's something important. I think families and children should really think about and reflect on, right?
Right.
When you're about to make this big decision. Um, we've shared an amazing horror story, so I have one more thing that I wanted to ask you
Mhm.
before we wrap today, and just so everyone knows, we're definitely going to have Howard on for more topics that we're going to be expanding to outside of college. But if I was to wrap up maybe some of our college conversation here, and I wanted to bring it into something that I feel like as a listener, you can certainly um, walk away, at least, at the very least, aside from all the amazing things you've talked about with this tidbit, which would be, for parents who are listening today or for students who are listening today, what's the first step they can take if they want to avoid, for example, paying that full cost of college, right? Or that retail sticker price. And what are tips you can share with them that they could take advantage of now as they think about this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. One thing, most colleges have what they call the net price calculator. And you can go into the college on their website and figure out what the approximate net price would be. So that's a good starter, not perfect. The second thing, go online and see what the average um, awards are. 3, call the financial aid office of the schools and get an idea of what they're looking for and what the criteria. The criteria either could be financial or it could be, not financial, but, driven by awards. And so you need to find out, or should find out, how generous is the school? What do they give out? What are they looking for? What are they looking for? What kind of student are they looking for? Um, then you get some kind of idea to kind of anticipate what the net cost would be.
Okay.
If you do that early in the game, it kind of gives you 3 or 4 years to like really plan ahead and see if it's worth it. I think a lot of people I know in the States have what they call a 529 plan. I think it's important to look at what assets the parents have, who owns them, how involved are the grandparents. That's really a key. I think you want to look at all sources of income, summer jobs. Students can earn $7,000-8,000 without it being included. You want to check with companies, do active scholarship searches on your own. Those are a lot of the things you can do to not be surprised and produce. And I don't call people products, but produce a good product that the schools are going to knock on your door and say, we want your son or daughter apply. So again, it's enrollment management, it's value, it's not accepting things at the retail, and try really hard to make a case to get more money. And, those are all things that I feel will be of great help to families. And, and it all depends on the child. Some children are very focused. They know what they want. They go to the college, they call up, they do their diligence. Others, they need a little bit of a push. And like I say, of all the families I've worked with, they're all different. Everyone's different.
Yeah. Do you have like a calculator that you use when you're calculating this, or how best can people probably, if they wanted to take a look at that in terms of, who owns what their budget looks like, would they be able to reach out to you to be able to speak about that?
I don't have a calculator. I use a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
What I do. And the reason I do that is it provides a visual of how things will look. Okay. How will it look? How does it compare? If you want the net cost, you can do your diligence. You go to the college, see what they pay, look at the stats. I always look at stats. That's what you can do. And as I said, every student is different. Now, if you're not, well, let's just maybe quickly say, if you're a very poor student, very, very poor, then you'll get financial aid and you'll get a grant and all that. and the government will give you as much money as they can. So that's something where you get more subsistence, from the U.S. government.
Mm.
The people in the middle, they have a combination of some investments, maybe. They have everyday expenses. They live from check to check.
Mm.
Then you have the people that are really rich, that what they're going to do is spend the money on college prep. They're going to spend the money on, thousands of dollars. I've seen it. I mean, I don't charge thousands of dollars, nowhere near that. But they don't have to worry about this because they have the money and they want the best for the children. So if you look at the poorest, they're going to get probably the most federal aid to limit. They may even get a free ride. If you look at the richest, they're not going to have to worry. It's all these people in the middle. If you had a bell curve, it's the middle of the bell curve, that those are the people that are challenged.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, so many insights and such great feedback, Howard. Thank you so much for your time. As always, looking forward to having you back on, and really excited. I think I've already gotten a lot here, and I was clearly taking notes there because I was like, wow, I like how you said, you should definitely be taking a look at these things, calculate them out, and that's going to help you plan and create your path, right? And so I want to see if I can put something together that we could potentially share with the audience.
Sure.
In terms of like a PDF of like, you want to have these things figured out. And I think a great way of, even developing that better relationship or setting that tone or plan together and how you're going to communicate, how are you going to track success is something that we can maybe work on and share with the audience as well. And we're happy to give that away. And don't forget to make sure you check out Howard's website for any insights and connect with Howard for any financial advice as well. But as always, Howard, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. It's always great talking to you.
Well,
much.
It's my pleasure. And, to your audience, my website is financialaidconsulting.com. But I think the other thing, and we were a little bit serious, a little bit humorous, but look at this as an adventure. It's not so terrible. It's something you'll look back on, maybe laugh about it. But this is a good time in everybody's life. It's a good time. And don't think any negative. If you think anything negative, forget it. This is a good time. It's an opportunity to travel. It's an opportunity to talk. It's just an opportunity to do the best you can as a parent. So look at it as something fun to do and take advantage of it.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for listening, and to the audience, take it easy. Thank you, Howard.
You're very welcome, Carl.
Take care.